Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Benny Matlock.
That's funny because I almost said, and I'm so fucking exhausted, I almost literally sang the opening, like, welcome to the, like, just out of like sheer, my brain is broken, and then you did it, so, I mean, it wasn't really singing, that was more like fudding. That was
more, like, I was just trying to see if they would notice that I'm not actually talking. Like,
that would be interesting to try to do a whole episode where you just make, just making sounds that are close enough. Like you try to replicate speech. Yeah. It's that thing like you can, if they can get it from context. I always hate those social media posts where they'll have something where the like words are all spelled backwards. And it's like, if you can read this, then you're either autistic or you're like one of the smartest people in the world. And it's like 100%. Well, not 100, but I'm like nearly 100% of people can read it. It's not really that difficult. Because the way that our brains work, where they fill in the information. But I think we could do that with audio, like just like this and up and down and yeah. Why is your
yeah, that's
okay. Maybe it doesn't work, but it was worth a try.
But I feel like you can pick up the vibe, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you know, if you listen to our episodes enough, as much as I have had to editing them. You know, it's just the same vocal rhythms, and we don't have a lot. Like, there's we don't have a lot of vocal range, so the episode's kind of just at a certain point, imagining what our mouths are doing is more interesting than the actual words coming out.
And because most people listen to podcasts like while they're driving or working on something or whatever. Maybe that's our experiment. We'll start normal like this, and about 10 minutes in, like, just slowly go into, and like, see if anybody notices. Like, just the second half is all us just doing inflection.
If I was like on a real road trip though, and a podcast started doing that, it would really fuck with me. Like, I would be like, am I having a fucking stroke? Why?
Or we'd get that angry call from like the widow because the husband was driving and fell asleep because it turned into ambient noise on him.
No, that's not my fault.
Oh, yeah.
Your husband should have been doing cocaine. The lifeblood of the road.
In fairness, even in our regular episode of ours, if you're counting on us to keep you awake, that's your fuck up, not ours. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So, welcome to the Self-Segregation Podcast.
Yeah. That would have been a better, more apt name. I guess,
yeah. Except for I don't know why I can't say that word right. Like, I always stumble over it.
It's probably because I'm a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
everything falls back into, I'm just a piece of shit, I guess.
I can't hear somebody say that phrase like that and without finally watching that. I think you should leave as permanently fucked up my brain. Because I hear stuff like that and it no matter how you say it, like just now, I hear it in Tim Robbins' voice.
Well, yeah, he stole it from me. He took my voice and I'm going to get him back for good.
You're joking, and then you'll see like an interview at some point, and they'll be like, how'd you come up with the idea for this character? Be like, well, about 12 years ago, I was listening to this video game podcast nobody's heard of. There was a guy on it, and inspiration struck. And you'll be like, son of a bitch.
I would be furious, because he was like, when we were doing that show, he wasn't famous like he is now, but
right.
He could have thrown us a retweet.
Right. But no, he just became uber.
Nothing would piss me off more than a powerful person liking my stuff. Because, God damn it, I should be elevated. So welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. On this show, we ramble for 5 to 20 minutes, and then we tell you a story.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to stall because mine's...
Don't do that.
Yeah. Well.
If it's a 15-minute episode, that's a fucking birthday present for me.
There was one thing I did want to talk about, like before we got to the topic at hand, is how fucked up is it that like one of the actual like storylines in the news is like, oh yeah, there's this congressional hearing and they say that there's UFOs in like possession, which we've heard before. And they're like, oh, and I hate that they say like non-human biologicals or however he worded that. It's like, yeah, I mean, a dog is non-human and we know countries have sent like dogs and apes up in crafts. That doesn't mean shit. But
yeah, like I did not hear about this until I just got off work. So like an hour ago. That all still seems like deflection bullshit.
Oh yeah, 100%.
From the fact that like the world is fucking crumbling because those idiot congressmen can't fucking do anything right.
No, that's exactly it. Because this isn't the first time they've been like, oh, they decided to release these files, and it's like, but if you notice, every time they do that, it's because there's other shit going on that they're desperate to try to be like, look over here, look over here.
Just from a reputation standpoint, I wouldn't want to admit that, like, yes, aliens are real, and they don't care for us. That's why they don't come back.
Well, and to make it, like, more, like, I don't know. I think at this point I want to believe, just from a, like, hopefully they come wipe us out standpoint, like...
I don't. If I didn't why would you? Because like we fucked the planet like beyond repair. They're probably looking at it like, yeah, there's no resources. We could get like more fucking tumbleweeds, I guess, if they're gone.
Yeah. But when the one article I actually read because I was that bored, I didn't even really read it. Skim through. Like they make it sound like, oh, this government officials like. Testifying before Congress about all this. I'm like, well, it seems weird because that the government would be testifying to the government about something like this. Like, again, that should be your first red flag. Like, what are they actually trying to distract us from? Yeah. Which the answer to that is fucking everything. But then like when I got to reading it, it's like, oh, this government whistleblower, and basically everybody else in the military is like, nope. This guy's crazy. So I don't know how much water it actually holds. Because in fairness, a conspiracy person would tell you, well, of course, that's what the rest of the military would say if they were covering it up.
Yeah.
So
I love the flip of being like, your whole life being an alien, like conspiracy theorist, and then like this meeting completely flips you and you're just like, it's bullshit.
That sounds like bullshit to me.
If they're copping to it, it can't be real.
How would you like to be an alien, like an actual outer space alien, and finally like, I gotta admit to these earthlings that I'm here, and you're like, yeah, look guys, I'm an alien.
I can't lie to them anymore.
Yeah, so you
come
out.
The Big Mac was because of me.
You come out in front of Congress and you're like, yeah, aliens are here and there's a lot of us, I'm one of them, and you like take your human suit off and this like alienoid creature stands up, and then still like 90% of the country would be like, no.
It'd probably be like that gross little fucker in like Men in Black when like the dude dies and then like his face opens up and there's just a little alien controlling him like a robot.
Yeah.
It's like that's probably what the aliens would be.
But like I said, and it's not an original thought because that whole movie Don't Look Up was based on that premise, which was based on the very real life stuff of the pandemic. But like I said, that could happen. Like if somebody in front of Congress on like live TV could like open their face up and a little alien step out, and most of us, probably me included, would be like, no, I don't believe it.
You know what? If like, I actually would feel a little better if they like our government was comprised of aliens. Because that is like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, that explains a lot.
You fucked everything up.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot more fucking maddening to know that everything's so fucked up just because people are pretty fucking bad at their core.
Yeah. That's very true. I've never thought of that, but it is much more like easy to accept. Be like, oh, this advanced race wants to like subjugate us. Makes sense because we've done the same thing. But yeah, you're right. When it's fellow humans and you're like, oh, nope, they're just like you and me. They're just assholes. It's like, yeah.
I was kind of thinking about that today, like, because there's like, water shortages and shit, like in California and stuff. And like in my state, or maybe not my state, but in my city, they're talking about like how much you can water your grass and stuff like that. And we've talked about it before on this show. I don't give a fuck about lawns or anything. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, pave it all, make everybody have a skate park right in their backyard.
Tear down a life and put up a parking lot. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I wrote that. They stole that too. But no, I was just thinking, like, there shouldn't be a situation where like regular citizens are asked to manage their water in a world where Coke and Pepsi get to sell that bullshit as water.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Like,
And
take it from them before you beg me. Like,
right. That's, yeah. I mean,
Dasani should not be a product. Like,
well, I don't particularly care because it's sometimes convenient to just be able to grab a pre-bottled bottle of water. But to your point, when you're having emergency water shortages, then maybe that should be the first to go.
But I'm not saying all bottled water. Like, I mean, it is dumb that water is a product. I'm saying specifically Coke and Pepsi's bottled water is fucking gross. Dasani is fucking gross.
Yeah, let's set up a panel that judges your bottled water whether it deserves to be around or not.
And I don't know how the fuck you do that. Like, what is that bottle made out of that contorts it into some Lovecraftian fluid? But
I'm one of those.
Fucking disgusting.
I 1,000% agree that there's bottled waters aren't equal, but I never care. I don't have a big enough gap between the bad ones and the good ones because to me, they're all still fucking water. Until you start getting into like the additives and whatever. But
if it's what's there, I'll drink it. But I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, and it's weird that there's different bottled water. Like it's enough that like if you did a blind taste test, I wouldn't be able to tell you what's what, but you could tell that they're different.
I could tell you Dasani easily. Like
I've had so much Dasani and I fucking hate it, but I keep having to drink it.
No, it's that noticeable. I haven't had Dasani in like probably 15 years, but I could tell you.
Well, man, then you don't know they fixed it.
They did not.
I want to be one of those guys where
Coke has not fixed something without like breaking it horrifically beforehand.
The key is, they're like Dasani filtered spring water. What it really probably is the waste runoff from Coke.
Yeah, totally. Like, Dasani sounds like a fucking, like, Christmas time cologne, and it tastes like one, too.
I kind of feel like it sounds like a disease that the settlers would have got. Be like, yeah, we all made it except for Billy Joe. He got Dasani.
You get it on the Oregon Trail game.
Yeah.
You boys died of Dasani.
So anyway,
do a show. Let's tell a story.
Real reason, and I assume maybe you didn't see I don't know what to fucking call them. I guess call them tweets, except for I'm still
They're called Twitter. Zeets now because
it's
he's an easthole.
But it was on Blue Sky, and they want to call them skeets, and I'm like, that's worse than the Zeets. Like,
skeets
just fucking.
Great. Not online, but skeets are great.
Skeeting, yeah, that's Anyway, as I had said, like it's a creepypasta day because holy fuck, it's been a fucking like 2 weeks at work. Like
I am still going strong.
I posted about this. It's been so busy and it's all problems and it's just stressful. And then like. A lot of times Thursdays, you're getting over that rush at the beginning of the week, but like you're not hit by the last minute Friday people yet. So like yesterday I was thinking, well, today fucking sucked too, but maybe tomorrow will slow down. Not only did today not slow down, but I found out one of my long-term clients that I actually like is in hospice and he's supposed to die in the next like 3 days. And it's like, cool. Like,
well, this one's for you, pal.
And that's one that I haven't actually had to process yet because it's always like, oh, this person died and that sucks. We've all dealt with like people dying, but the like, oh, this person's going to die imminently, but they're still alive. It's like, okay, what do I say to that? Like,
well, you do a whole podcast for them.
Yeah. So my point is today was not a day that I had time or mental capacity to put together a story. So I got a creepypasta. And because I was like, Ben hates all the creepypastas I pick. Let's also pick one about aliens because you don't tend to be a big fan of UFO and alien stuff. So this one was hand-picked to be like your least favorite option.
Okay. I'm going to just play Street Fighter then.
Fighter, yeah.
Assume when I'm swearing at that, I'm swearing at you.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, isn't that funny? Wait, why did you just shout Hadouken?
Yeah, that's what they sound like to me. I don't know what the fuck they say in that game.
I know. It's like Hadouken is what I've been saying since like the 90s, but for everything, like in my mind, M. Bison still says Hadouken. Anyway, yeah, the Street Fighter, great game. I've not played the new one, but I hear good things.
It's outstanding. Well, much like this story is going to be.
I liked it. I actually read through it. Or skimmed through. I can't even fucking remember if I read the thing or skimmed through the thing. Okay. But it's here. It's called The Alien, and it's by Cyanwrites or Cyanwrites. I don't know how they pronounce
it. By CNN.
And when I saw the name, I'm like, I swear we've done a story by this person before. And I knew it wasn't this. It wasn't one of those that we've talked about where like halfway through you get the cold sweats like, oh fuck, did I fuck up? And have we covered this? I know we haven't covered this, but I was like, oh, I think we covered one. And when I checked, they're like, the list of stories that's attributed to them on the wiki or the creepypasta page we use. I didn't recognize any of the stories, but I still kind of feel like we did one of them. But anyway, that's who did this one. And it's called The Alien. The following passage is taken from The Notebook of Officer Miles Bradbury.
The Notebook. Mm-hmm. Dear Diary, I arrested so many perps today.
Most of them were innocent, but I beat them anyway, even though they were shouting stupid wussy-ass things like, stop, I didn't do anything, and please, I can't breathe. I kept beating the fuck out of them. Oh.
Dear Diary, if one more fucker videotapes me breaking home...
Yeah, I'm in a special mood as far as that goes, too, because there's like 3 or 4 stories in the news locally currently about blatant police brutality, so go you guys. The one got fired, though, so that's good. I'm sure the guy that was unarmed and relatively innocent, I think he was like speeding or something, that got mauled by a police dog that was sicked on him for no reason. He got fired, so I'm sure that makes it up to the guy that got mauled by a fucking dog. Like, I feel better now. Anyway, political hot takes aside, 17th of April, 2013, we were called out to investigate a forest fire. Of course, when we got there, we saw government agents who merely told us to secure a perimeter and gave us fake details to spout to anybody who tried to come close. My close colleague, Jake, and I were a little annoyed by this. We passed the tedious hours chatting. It didn't take long for the government agents to come up during the conversation. And I love the idea that you would just call them, like, government agents.
Yeah, well, that's
like, you don't even question what...
Intro. It's like, we're with Division 6, like...
Yeah, but as a cop, you roll up and just some guys in suits say, don't ask questions, stand here. And you're just like, well, he's got a suit.
I probably would. I'd probably stay put. I mean, because that's a human psychological thing. Like, when people act in charge,
yeah, that's true.
People tend to follow.
That's how I got fucking, like, actual interviews at PAX by acting like a journalist. It's very true. That's a good point. So what do you think they're doing back there, I asked.
Jacking off.
Government jack off.
And leaving us out of it. We gotta get in that jack off party.
This ain't the first time somebody didn't invite me to jack off, damn it. Weapons testing, I'll bet. Well, I doubt it's weapons testing. It would account for the smoke, but why do that in the middle of the forest? Why not at Moor or out at sea, somewhere safe? I get the line of reasoning there, but it's like, why in the middle of nowhere in a forest? Why not in the middle of nowhere in a swamp or the middle of nowhere at sea? It's like, well, the 3 things you mentioned are basically all the same thing. But whatever. Like, who likes a fucking forest for weapons testing? You're right. Weapons testing doesn't make any sense. I might go take a look. If they let you. My friend was silent after that. I wish I'd known what was going on inside his head. I might have tried to stop him if I had. The next day, he wasn't at his post, so I stood alone for the entire morning shift. It's another thing I enjoy. Not only do they not really question who's giving them orders, but then it's like, my partner didn't show up. Guess I'll stand here by myself.
No.
Like,
during my lunch like that, though.
Well, yeah, but theoretically, as a police officer, if a fellow police officer that's supposed to be there is not, you should probably at least radio that in. Like, hey,
nope.
Anybody seen Jerry? During my lunch break, he approached me, but he was different. It wasn't just the fact that his clothes and face were dirty and covered in some kind of slime. It wasn't just how exhausted he was.
It was a jack-off party. What do you want from him?
I like that he was different. Not the mud and the slime. That was pretty par for the course for Jerry, or whatever, Jake, I guess his name was. Wasn't how exhausted he was, because we're all fucking exhausted. If you're an adult, you're exhausted. That's just how that works. Or even that he was shaking because he had Parkinson's. Oh, I don't know. Like, none of those things. It's like, none of that really bothered me. It was the look in his eyes. I've never seen anything like it. The only way I could describe it was that there was a madness in his eyes. Frantic desperation to do something, constantly at war with an intense, debilitating fear of actually doing it. So that's like me every morning trying to decide if I should go to work or just say fuck it.
The eyes of every commenter in a porn video section. Like,
no, those people have no part of their brain telling them maybe to not do it.
No, there's not. It's a madness. It's the weird part of your brain that like blows a load and feels like you need to share that factoid with the world.
You know, that's one area of the internet I've never delved into is porn comment section.
You're missing out. It's like 50 posts of like, oh man, she's so fucking hot. And then like, then the next one will be like, probably the solution to all of humanity's problems. Like somebody just like did their business and is now like in a state of clarity of mind.
Yeah. Between crazed gasps of breath, he uttered the words, "It's an alien." I laughed. Or no, I would have laughed if it weren't for his appearance. He's apparently covered in alien cum. I don't know. It's an alien jack-off party. I would have never guessed that. This was no laughing matter, Ben. No joking.
Oh, okay. Shut it down.
I mean, I would joke, and I would be happy for you to joke, but they put it in the story, so now the rest of our show is fucked, because we got to listen to it. It's not a laughing matter. This is serious stuff. What? I started. You mean like little gray men? He shook his head. No, not like that. These were something bigger. Not size, but just greater than us, more powerful. We are ants compared to it. Humanity is nothing. We are nothing. He started to laugh and cry and shake. So again, me every morning before work. I backed away uneasily, which is also me if somebody's having like an emotional whatever. Like if somebody's crying, I would love to be the person who's like so empathetic that your natural response is to try to like soothe them. Mine is like, how do I get out of this situation without being a complete ass? Like, hey, stop crying in front of me.
That's rude. You're expecting me to be supportive. That's fuck off. That's rude.
Excuse me, person who just watched your dog get hit by a car. You're making me uncomfortable. Can you go cry somewhere else?
Will you please get your tragedy out of my face?
Your bad, thing that happened is now starting to affect me, and I don't think you've considered that. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I backed away uneasily. The next moments I'll never forget. He grabbed my porcelain mug from the table, poured the contents onto the floor, shattered the mug against the table, and rammed the jagged remains into his own throat.
Probably could have used your gun. You're a cop.
Probably, if he's a cop. And I love the idea of like emptying the mug first. Like, I'm going to kill myself, but I don't want coffee on me. Like, I don't want it to burn. I want it to bleed.
I need a clean death.
Maybe it was just like, I hate the taste of coffee. Like, I don't know how you drink this shit. Blah, blah, blah. I rushed forward and tried to stop him, but I was too late. He was bleeding profusely. He gripped hold of my hand so tight that it hurt, and he didn't let go until he had finished choking to death on his own blood. Which is very impressive to me, to like maintain your strength throughout the entire dying process. Mm-hmm. Like, but maybe you do. I don't know. I've never died. I didn't move for the next 20 minutes, which was really fucking awkward, but I couldn't decide if I wanted to kiss him one last time.
An old smoochy poo.
Even then, the others, I think that means even when the others found us. I was under suspicion of his death because they found me holding a 20-minute dead body. Yeah. And again, I've got a radio on my hip, and I didn't call it in.
It was my mug.
Of course I was under suspicion. When the government types saw the slime on his clothes, they were even more eager to convict me. I was determined to get to the bottom of this. I don't know how. You're probably in jail at this point. I didn't think I could sleep again until I had. They took me to a spare room and kept a guard posted, with orders not to let me so much as move. Of course, he told me in confidence that he didn't believe I was guilty. I desperately took advantage of this. When enough time had passed that he began to grow complacent, I got up and beat him unconscious.
What the fuck up? Like,
which will severely help my I'm innocent plea, I'm sure. Or I killed him. I don't know.
So there was no, like, cameras where all this went down? He said this was on his lunch break.
But they were in the middle of the woods.
So why do you have a mug? What the fuck is he doing?
You don't take your coffee to the...
I'm hanging out by the fucking coffee pot by the fucking elm tree? Like...
Maybe that's why he dumped the content. It was his piss mug that he takes with him. He's got it's a small bladder, but it's very active because of its size. So he only needs a coffee mug, but he's constantly filling and dumping it.
Alright, so he beat the shit out of a fucker.
He says, I beat him unconscious, or I killed him. I'm not sure. So the best way to prove my innocence in the first murder is to maybe murder a second cop.
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
I didn't even stop to think about it long enough to feel any kind of guilt or remorse. I had to get to the smoke no matter what.
So you see, Watson, I'll kill everyone to solve this shit.
That's the new, like, gritty Holmes reboot that we need, where Holmes is... Like, it's almost like that, what is that, the Dexter?
Yeah.
Except for, like... From what I never watched that show either, but I understand that like he was a serial killer, but he killed bad people. And this guy's like, I'll kill anybody to prove this one person.
The game is afoot, so get the fuck out of his way.
No, every time he says a game is afoot, he holds up the severed foot of the latest victim.
The most dangerous game is afoot.
Blah, blah, blah. I killed him, but had to get to the smoke. After several minutes of trekking, I started to feel vulnerable, and not just from the possibility of getting caught by my fellow police officers or the government. I felt as if a million eyes were staring at me with killing intent. I felt like every molecule of air around me was a predator, so dangerous that it preyed on humans. Or so dangerous that preyed on... A lot of predators prey on humans, but I get it. You feel like you're being stalked by something. My dead colleague's words came back to me. I literally felt like an ant staring up at a human's foot, or boot. Which is a great callback to last week's myth about a giant fucking boot. Maybe it's all related. These are real stories. It's all something that really... Story. Yeah, aliens. We pictured all sorts of aliens. I don't know if anybody's ever portrayed aliens as just a giant fucking foot that comes down from the sky. It does sound like a Douglas Adams type thing, though.
Sooner or later, people will pick up on like every story we've ever told on this show is just fucking Mad Lib.
The feeling only grew stronger the closer I got to the smoke. My chest was aching, my spine was tingling, so I was clearly in my 40s or later. My forehead was burning. The symptoms of my anxiety were so severe, I felt like I was walking through a desert. I had to breathe slowly and deeply to calm myself down, but it still wasn't enough. Every step I took was a great effort. In through the nose, out through the mouth, one foot in front of the other.
As they teach you in cop school.
I hope that's all one thought. Like he's putting one foot in through the nose and out through his mouth. Like
yeah, he gets him mixed up.
He pretzels himself, yeah.
In through the nose, out through the foot. Fuck. How'd it go?
I finally made it to the clearing, and I saw what was causing the smoke. When you see UFOs on TV, they look like discs or triangles or flashing lights. All things you've seen before. What was in front of me, I knew without a doubt was a UFO, even though I'd never seen anything like it. It was a craft such as one that humanity would never be capable of making. I had little knowledge of science, but I knew that this craft was capable of traveling past the speed of light.
Very Elon Musk of you to look at a thing and be like, I know how quick that goes.
I was about to say, that just described like at least 60% of online culture. Like, look, admittedly, I don't know fucking shit about this discipline, but clearly this is how this works. Like I
watched a 5-minute YouTube video.
Yeah, you qualify it with 8 paragraphs of how unequipped you are to answer the question, and then one thing that's like, but even I can tell that this is the answer. It's like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Anyway. Traveling past the speed of light, just looking at it, I realized that everything we think we know about physics is wrong, which was easy because you just admitted you know very little about physics.
Everything you know personally about physics is probably wrong.
That's the thing, is they could come out tomorrow and be like, we just overturned this theory of relativity. I'd be like, great, I never fucking understood it. I've tried multiple times. Like, you're not necessarily... Yeah, you're not blowing my mind here. Like, I can appreciate the fact when science does, like,
how about you get some, like, fucking decent physics in a goddamn Sonic the Hedgehog game? That's all I give a fuck about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what... transversely, like, wake me up when science discovers Sonic the Hedgehog physics is real in real life. Like, we just... If you curl up into a tight enough ball, you can just go... Zoom, 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 it's like go zooming off. Be like, that's great. I'm selling my car. I'm just going to zoom everywhere. Everything's wrong. I couldn't go any further. I turned back into the forest and sat down. That's when I wrote this. I wanted to uncover why my friend died, but now... It's very thoughtful of him to kill a guard that had him in custody and then find a notebook somewhere.
Yeah.
Because they tend to take your stuff when they put you in custody, but whatever.
Maybe the guard had the notebook. That's what spawned the bloodlust.
We need to write or do a show that's like about what the requirements are to be an actual honest-to-God creepypasta. Because we've talked about they should have somewhere like I nearly shat myself or nearly pissed myself. Like that's almost 100%, although we've gotten away from that lately. There has to be some element of it being like journaled or written down, because almost all of them are told from first person, which I get why, because that's the kind of the nature of the stories. But like so many of them are like, I stopped at the least logical place and wrote my life story down in this notebook, in the hopes that somebody finds it, and then always end with the sentence, but now that you know the truth, there's not shit you can do about it, but I still wasted all this time writing it down, motherfucker.
Troll face.
If any of you government people find this notebook, keep it to yourselves. I don't want anyone else reading this. Then why the fuck did you write it and leave it? I don't want the truth getting out. I just had to write it down, though, and hope that the government people found it. Humanity is not ready for this, and they never will be. After I've written this, and once I've gathered my courage, I'm going to look inside the UFO.
Weird choice.
Yeah. And again, I love that this hinges on the premise that government agents found this UFO and ordered a local police quarantine and then have completely left the UFO unattended. While they know a cop that kind of knows the secret is on the loose. They're just like, well, let's go look for this guy. Nobody watched the UFO, though. Like, we don't want anybody here investigating. The following passage is taken from the notes of Dr. Osman, a new character introduced in the last few paragraphs of the story. 9th of July, 2013. I think that's about 3 months after the other pages were supposed to have happened. Miles Bradbury isn't too strange a case. He constantly harps on about seeing an alien. It's when he goes in detail that things start to get interesting. Of course, most of the time he just babbles and stammers for his entire interview. But when he talks about the alien, he describes it as being beautiful, perfect, gigantic, but not in size, and other such praises.
It was a porn jerk-off party.
Again, yeah, and that's...
all those are...
I mean, I admittedly, this is a flaw in my pervy-ass brain, but when you tell me something like gigantic, but not in size... I immediately assume then you must be talking about a penis. Like, I don't mean he was tall. I mean he was big. Wink, wink.
I was just thinking about a line in Black Books, which is a British sitcom. And two characters are talking about, like, people they've dated. And it's like, oh, have you ever dated somebody with a nice ass? And the guy's like, I don't know if it was nice so much as it was huge. So there was a tremendous sense of value.
I like that. I might steal that. Gigantic such praises. He says that it was of a higher form of life than humanity, and could destroy us all with little effort, if required. In fact, during a few interviews, he stops here and merely starts screaming, "Humanity is nothing!" over and over at the top of his lungs until we sedate him. So clearly he's watching the nightly news. He shows no signs of brain damage or physical trauma, no history of episodes or disorders. This was all caused by some kind of psychological trauma the night before he was brought in after killing 2 fellow officers. Which in fairness would be a convenient way to write off his psychosis. Be like, well, he randomly murdered 2 people and is now insane. Like, makes sense. Something broke. This patient has very little chance of recovery. It's troubling. There's seemingly no cause for this condition. I literally cannot think of a single reason on earth that a man could snap this violently. Which is interesting from a psychologist perspective, when people seem to mostly randomly snap violently a lot.
But not like this. Not on Earth. Wink, wink.
They never make up alien stories, though.
But I've never seen anything on this earth but a gigantic, beautiful alien babe, a bodacious babe beyond the stars. You
forgot, because the 2 or 3 times that they said the phrase, you got to qualify it. Gigantic, but not in size.
But it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
It did say beautiful.
Did say beautiful, yes.
Yeah.
Higher life form, like... Again, you can look at certain things and be like, nah.
Beautiful, bodacious Krogan babe.
So that's the end of the story. They found aliens, and neither officer could mentally handle the consequences of that.
Yeah.
Which is fun when, like I said, I started by a government person in front of Congress saying, oh yeah, we've got aliens, and not only does it not snap most people's brains, it doesn't make it to the top of their, like, today's news list. Yeah. It's like,
I don't know, cool. Like, to me, I guess it depends what the alien actually was, but, like, you know, like, you get the Lovecraftian sort of, like, oh, this is why it breaks your mind, because it's from a fucking reality that's not our own, and, you know, nothing about us is meant to see it. But, like, if it's just some space traveling shit, it's like, okay, it's a new type of fucking spaceship. Like, why does that make you shit your pants? And like,
yeah. I don't know. I think there are plenty of people. I mean, think of all the, like, fundamentalist Christians that when suddenly faced with like concrete proof that the Earth isn't the only planet with intelligent life on it, and trying to square that with the Bible. Now, what they would do in actuality is most of them would just deny it. They'd say it's a trick of the devil. There's all sorts of tricks that those people or not tricks, but kind of weird arguments that the people pull out of their asses for that. But I could see a segment of those people, like their brains just fucking breaking. Yeah. And there's certain people, like we're all at different mental states. I mean, I think a lot of us are on edge anyway. So it's certainly within the realm to believe that simply merely facing the fact that, wait, there is life out there and we're not the top of the chain as far as intelligence and technology and even apparently physical evolution, or metaphysical evolution, whatever. I could see it breaking some people's brains, but I think most of us would just be like, well, that's a new thing to consider. And even the idea is like, oh, well, this constant idea that they could just wipe out all life as we know it if they decide. It's like, yeah, if you're like me, I already feel like we live in a world where all life could be wiped out and within the span of a week at most. Yeah. Like,
a new ship isn't going to help.
Yeah, like, in fact, if you tell me, well, this thing's out here and it could just blink life out, I'd be like, well, that sounds a lot more like if we're going to go in a mass extinction event, like, that sounds pleasant. Like, I don't know. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like that nihilistic or like despondent about things, because I'm not. But
what if like it didn't work on everybody though? Like everybody gets like blinked out, but it's like it just blinks out your arm. You're just
that's
like,
what would happen.
Fuck.
But just like most of the arm, like you still have a skeletal, like your bone is still sticking
your
out.
little fucking elbow nubs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh great, I'm still alive on this hellscape, and now I gotta fucking forage with these.
Yeah, right, and there's not people I can go to for like help for like prosthetics or advice.
Thanks, universe master fucking space race.
I can't even shatter no hand to jab a mug into my throat. But
we have one alien jack-off party. This is what happens, folks.
So, like I said, I mostly picked it because of the correlation between that, like, relatively ridiculous, I think, news line about the current UFO stuff. And I liked the kind of Lovecraftian angle to it, but it also kind of shows how hard it is to pull off that angle, because I don't think it was particularly.
I don't know. Like, I don't really have any gripe with the story itself. It's just kind of.
But it's like that cut and dry. Like
I think that I think that is a bit of a. I don't want to call it a cop out because I think it's the story they meant to do, but like. I feel like it is a little bit of a played out, like, and my brain couldn't even fathom, like, it's.
Well, and that's the thing and that's like the whole Lovecraft thing is saying it's so unimaginable I can't even describe it.
But there was a lot of description and
right, so I kind of
Lovecraft.
And there's a lot of description in this, but it was kind of like that, like it was so much it broke my brain because it was beautiful and big and otherworldly. And it's like, well,
that's not really a description. Like that's
but that's what I mean.
Like, those are like adjectives to add on to the mystery rather than explain.
But I kind of felt like it was more like. I can't think of a specific example, but movies, especially lately, have been really guilty, about where they'll have like some little like. Almost Easter eggy type thing at the beginning that you would never ever guess, but explains something that happens later in the plot, and it happens, and it's clear enough that unless you're like not paying attention or really dumb, when it happens, you're like, oh, that was a callback to this other thing. But then the directors or writers or whoever in charge are so unsure of the audience that they, like a minute later, specifically say like, oh yeah, like that basketball in the first scene, like have one of the characters say something like that. It's like, well, you just fucking cheapened it. But like, and I kind of feel like this was akin to that. Like I want to make sure you understand that it was so ununderstandable that it broke his brain. It's like, well, we got that
like, you don't have to show me everything, and you probably shouldn't if you're trying to write a spooky story. But I think you got to go a little bit further than that. Because like I said, otherwise it feels like you're kind of just, you're pulling the rug out from under your own story just to hit that like Lovecraft ending.
Yeah.
Like you can,
and again,
that ending, if you're writing a story and you want to end it with like the character going crazy, I'm not faulting you for it. Like, go for it. I've read a ton of Lovecraft and I like it, but like,
but Ben, he wasn't
no, he's a piece of shit, but the stories are interesting.
Yeah.
But that ending isn't going anywhere. Like that would be my advice, is like, you can keep building your story. They can always go crazy at the end, you know? So go further with it, you know, like, because just showing me a spaceship is not enough. Like, maybe that's just a mark of where we're at, but, you know, we're kind of numb to that being being the cutoff point.
I did very much appreciate that ramp up of like, oh, I know they're going to pin this on me and I didn't murder my friend, so I'm going to murder this guard to get out and prove I'm innocent of the first murder. It's like, well,
that's kind of a Hotline Miami level.
Yeah. I liked it. That's not a criticism. It was enjoyable to me.
I enjoyed the story. And you know, again, like,
I'll tell you,
nobody is expecting perfection from your creepypasta story. Like, as long as they're entertaining, that's good enough, and it's definitely good enough for us.
I stumbled across this one because, like, I was specifically searching alien, like UFOs, alien. Like, I was looking for a story in this genre. I'll tell you, when I clicked on the author's name and to check out like what other stuff they posted under it, and again, it's Cyanwrites or Cyanwrites, Cyan Writes. Like,
isn't that cyan, like the color?
Yeah, I think so. Although I always say it cayenne, even though I went to art school.
Cayenne pepper.
Cayenne pepper, right?
Maybe that's delicious. Right. I don't know. I've always called it cyan.
I think it's whenever you start to get into artistic terms, there's no right answer because artists are weird. They're like, it's whatever you interpret the word to be, Ben. Anyway, when I clicked on their name to see if we if I recognized any of their other stories, they've got some stories that I'm like, man, I wish I could do this one, but I want to do the alien theme tonight. So don't be shocked if I bring them back up at some point. Although I am not that lazy to where I'll do back-to-back stories from the same creepypasta author. But yeah, that's, I just wanted to mention too, like if it feels like, oh, well, like you said, we both enjoyed the story. I thought it was a pretty decent story. But if it feels like, oh, well, but you're criticizing this and that. So I like their writing. I liked a couple. I read like 3 of theirs, and there's more than that they've posted, and they're all pretty interesting. So check them out. Or don't, so that I can do them later.
We'll do them later anyway. If we're just, right. I'll be reading the scripts of like all your favorite fucking Marvel movies at a certain point, just trying to pad out time.
So big of an IP that they would, like, even though our show's largely inconsequential and not for money, I feel like they'd still kick down my door and just like sniper me in the head if I did it. But I could totally, like, there's the script breakdowns for like the probably all of them, but the early Simpsons episodes, and back in like the golden age of my job, when there would be hours of boredom and downtime where I wasn't being constantly like bombarded by shit, I would sit and like just read through the scripts, because I've watched that show so fucking much that reading the script, it's like playing the episode in my head. I could picture every scene. So I could see doing that, but then Disney, who owns The Simpsons now, would...
No, I'm talking like riffing on the Marvel movies because they're fucking dumb.
Yeah, that I would be bad at, because I've talked about it before. For one,
that would drive me as insane as any story you ever brought onto the show. Because I would just be like, stop fucking quipping. Oh my God, shut up. Just fight the raisin, please.
But The thing there is I've talked about before with Marvel movies is I'm so disconnected and not a target person for those that when one movie comes out and everybody's like, this is so fucking awesome. I've seen it 8 times this week. And then another one comes out, they're like, this is bullshit. It fucking sucks. Hang the director. And I like watch the two of them and I'm like, I don't see a difference.
I mean, well, that's, there's not a lot of difference now. And that's what's wrong with them. But if you like that one movie they're doing over and over again, enjoy.
But that's what I mean is some people, they'll absolutely love one movie and then hate the other. And it's like, it's the same fucking movie.
But I mean, there's also different heroes. So
right.
The Spider-Man movies are fucking Marvel movies through and through, but I like Spider-Man. So it gets a pass. But
isn't Spider-Man DC?
Yeah.
I just said that to make somebody's brain out there explode. I'm not that out of the loop. Yeah. I was just hoping if you listen to our show, there's a very high chance that you're nerdy. And I just want to, I'm picturing comic book guy from Simpsons because again, Simpsons is my whole personality. It's just like having an aneurysm.
Comic book guy is your whole personality.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
How many Mountain Dews would you give that story out of 5?
Oh, I would give it... Well, it depends. Are they Baja Blast?
Well, yeah, because it's summer, so Baja Blast, the taste of summer.
And fuck yeah, I'm Baja Blasting the shit out of this story.
Yeah.
Baja Blast all over its face.
I'm going to Baja skeet on this shit. All right.
So to be fair, because... You're not a critic. You can't give anything a perfect score because then you're not a critic. So I'll say 4.97 Bajas out of Blast.
Out of Blast. Yeah, that sounds fair. Did I tell you like one time I actually like unironically called Baja Blast the taste of summer to a gas station attendant? Like, I bought a bottle of it, and she was like, wow, I've been selling a lot of this today. And I literally, without missing a beat, said, because it's the taste of summer. And I walked out.
And you didn't end up with a date out of it? Like, that's some, like, meet cute stuff there.
No, I wanted an endorsement. I wanted, like, an executive to be like, my God.
The one guy standing in the convenience store that heard it is a higher up at Mountain Dew.
Just peeking over the Twix bars, hoping someone would realize.
But the reality is, you're like, I wanted the endorsement. Just wait until you see that on the next poster, because you know they'd steal the shit out of it. You'd never get credit for it.
That's fine. Like, I just want free Baja Blast for a while.
Have you tried the alcoholic Mountain Dews that are out? I think they have them.
No, but I feel like you could just add vodka as the Mountain Dew. You'd be fine.
Right. Maybe it's not Mountain Dew. I know they have alcohol.
No, they do.
Monster Energy.
No, there's definitely alcoholic Mountain Dew. I'll get there in my journey in life. But not today. Maybe next week when we do the show again with another story, I'll try to find some alcoholic Mountain Dew and have a grand old time.
Kind of missed that. You ran through that whole Kickstarter. Was it Kickstarter? What was the drink that you were like, I'm going to each week drinking?
Gamer Fuel.
Gamer Fuel, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Sure fucking was. I don't think any of those were good.
No.
In retrospect, some were better than others, but yeah, that was dog shit.
Yeah, that doesn't mean a whole lot, in and of itself. But so maybe we'll restart that experiment with the alcoholic Mountain Dews.
All right, yeah.
Anyway,
so see you next week. Ciao.
Cha-ching. Oh, ciao. Bye. Cha-bye.
Ching, dollar bills, yo.
This is me realizing I don't have the proper window open to hit stop on my recording.